Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program, Hump Day. And if you want to join us, feel free. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And some of the big stories today, I like to start with the big stories. Adam Schiff has started a legal defense fund. Why? Because the investigations into his mortgage fraud or potential mortgage fraud has intensified. Now, this is very rich because I remember Adam Schiff was spearheading the attacks on President Trump. Right from Russia, right? Remember, he was ranking member there. And then he was one of the impeachment managers and led the charge there with Dan Goldman. And these guys, they were out to get El Trumpito, saying he did all of these bad things. And here they are, right? And this is typical for all of Washington. I mean, there's so much blame to go around. Why these people try to throw rocks, and then, run away. It just doesn't make sense to me. Something like this is always going to happen to you. Old saying, live by the sword, die by the sword, right? That's how it is. You do dirt, dirt's going to get done on you. So, Adam Schiff, you dug this one for yourself, whatever the outcome is. Look at Menendez, right? Gold Bar Bob. Gold Bar Bob had been in trouble, not in trouble, but investigated many times. And I would say, and this is not a defense of him, but just I'd say a clarification, that a lot of the accusations that were made against him likely weren't true. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't do the gold bars and he wasn't taking money from foreign governments and whatnot. No, that apparently he did. But there were other allegations that he was going overseas and engaging in prostitution with minor prostitutes. This is, again, I'm not trying to defend him there. I remember when it happened and how it happened. And it was very clear. He was opposing Obama. And he was saying, nope, I'm not siding with Iran. And look, this guy's got a lot of left-wing tendencies. But Gold Bar Bob was solid on Iran. He was always solidly against communists as well. Had a sense about him, I guess because of his Cuban background and his constituency, having served as mayor of Union City, New Jersey, which at one point was home to more Cubans than Miami, besides Cuba. And he knew that this was kind of kiss of death type of thing. So he opposed JCPOA. He opposed Obama. And when he did the same thing with Biden, lo and behold, he got in trouble again. Isn't it funny how during the Trump years, they weren't going after Gold Bar Bob, right? They say that Trump weaponizes the justice system, but you know what? Those 4 years of Trump 1.0, those were 4 good years. Now, I've heard it said, and I don't know how accurate it is, that Obama called his friend Raul Castro and had Cuban intelligence people try and dig up dirt. And they basically did to Gold Bar Bob what they did to Hillary Clinton, right? What Hillary Clinton did to El Trumpito, I should say, right? The fake dossier saying that they're doing all these lewd things in different places, right? With El Trumpito, he was doing all these things in Moscow. With Gold Bar Bob, he's doing all these things in the Dominican Republic. Now, again, I'm not saying he didn't do them, but I would suspect, that All of those things are embellishments. Maybe he was on vacation. Maybe he was hanging out with some women. Maybe they were even young women, but of age. And I say that because typically most politicians, especially long-term ones like Goldbar Bob, they have sense about themselves. They might be brazen in certain things, but their whole goal is to have fun and not get caught. So to me, that part never made sense. It always looked like a hit job coming from his opposition to their friendliness with Iran. Anyway, just that's an aside. And my point is, all of these people, whether it's Goldbar Bob or Adam Schiff or any of these people, you can always look in everybody's closet and find some skeletons. You're always going to find them. Because the way things work in the swamp is dirty, right? The swamp is a dirty place, so you're always going to find these things. So I think it behooves you, if you're in the swamp, do the best you can to stay on the up and up. Don't do what Adam Schiff did. Don't lie over and over and over saying, I have irrefutable evidence, blah, 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 blah. Never had anything. Fake, phony fraud, and now they're investigating him for being a fake, phony fraud. You got to love it. Anyway, what else we got? People continue to love what El Trompito is doing. Yep. In particular in Washington, D.C. They're very, very excited with what's happening there. Why? Because people want to live in a safe neighborhood. Now, I got a call today from somebody in Washington, D.C. Matter of fact, he was down the block. It was outside the White House. My buddy, Mr. Producer. You may know him from the Mark Levin Show. He's a producer on my podcast. He's a dear friend of mine. And Rich Cementa is his name, Richard Cementa. And Mr. Cementa was in the Oval Office today, shaking hands, hanging out with El Trompito. If you go on his social media, you'll see the really, really nice photos that he posted of him and President Trump in the Oval Office. And he was telling me how nice things are, how safe it seemed, how cleaned up it is. Even Union Station, because he took the train down there. He's a New Yorker. And I thought, it's great to hear these things. It's great to hear that what Trump is doing is actually working. And not just from the people that go, inside the Beltway, but from people all over D.C. Because, there's a lot of rough parts of D.C. And it's in those rough parts, I think, that they have the most appreciation for President Trump and what he's doing. So when we come back, I want to take a deep dive, a look at everything that's going on with that stuff. Plus, I also want to talk about this story I saw in the news. Jillian Michaels is making some headlines. And I've always been a big Jillian Michaels fan because I was a big The Biggest Loser fan, right? The TV show with the fat people that would lose weight. And Jillian Michaels, of course, famous coach from that show. Another famous coach from that show is Cara Castronuova. You may recognize her name because she's on television. You've seen her on, different conservative networks doing commentary and reporting and serving as most recently as a White House correspondent. And she's got a bird's eye view of what's going on, not only in Washington, but she's a former Golden Gloves boxer and was one of the trainers on The Biggest Loser as well. So I want to find out what's the story that's going on with these the things we're hearing about Jillian Michaels, and what's the story with what's going on in Washington, D.C. So we're going to get to that straight ahead with our guest. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company live and national, 833-4-VALDEZ if you want to join the program. Check this out. So I'm a big fan of The Biggest Loser because I was fat once and I did not get to go to The Biggest Loser. And I'm still kind of chubby, but nothing like I was. But the point here is I love the show, and now there's this documentary on Netflix that's saying that The Biggest Loser was, somehow mean, and they were forcing people to do certain things. And I'm thinking, how else are you going to get these really fat people to lose all this weight and develop the discipline that they've never had their whole life? So anyway, I feel like they're portraying some people in a bad light. And guess what? Jillian Michaels, one of the coaches there, they are portraying her in a negative light, and she's suing them. Listen to this, cut 19.
She's lawyered up, hiring the attorney Justin Baldoni is using in the It Ends With Us lawsuit, Brian Friedman, telling TMZ she's taking aim at Netflix, former friend Bob Harper, and Dr. Robert Huizinga, and she's bringing receipts.
Do we pursue this legally? Do I just do a data dump? At no point was caffeine banned from the show.
Jillian claims this email with Bob and Dr. Huizinga's assistant shows they were aware caffeine pills would be distributed to contestants, which they denied in the doc and with ET.
Her contestants were using the caffeine pills. You had no idea that was going on?
No, I had no idea. No caffeine pills were allowed.
As for this claim,
they said, Ryan, there's blood in your urine, which obviously means you're so dehydrated. She gives me a big hug and she says, Ryan, you just made me a millionaire.
Sounds like Jillian Michaels.
That is from Entertainment Tonight. And one of the coaches on The Biggest Loser was none other than Cara Castronuova. You know her from her work on television as a commentator and as a correspondent, reporting from Washington, D.C. and all over New York City earlier in her career. And I want to get her take on this because I think it's interesting, right? I think it's interesting, a program that helped so many people. But let's bring her into the program. Cara Castronuova, welcome.
Hey, how are you, Rich?
Good, good. So I want to know, did you see this documentary about The Biggest Loser? Have you had the opportunity?
Honestly, I have not watched it yet. I didn't even know it was out yet. I mean, someone had told me about it, but I don't have Netflix, or at least I'm not subscribed right now. So, but I had heard about it. And, I had heard about it, and it's interesting to say the least. Yeah. I get nervous because I don't know what I should say who wants to get wrapped up in a lawsuit, but. Oh,
that's all right. Come on. A lawsuit's good. It's good press for you.
It's there's like lawsuits all the time, but for the most part, I had a good experience on the show, but of course there were people, that I know that were on the show that definitely gained the weight back and feel like the show ruined their lives. I mean, these are just things that people told me, but there's some people that...
Put them on with me, and I will tell them that being fat was going to ruin their life, not losing weight and gaining it back.
Well, a lot of the times they gained the weight back. That was the problem, or they felt like their knees were like ruined or like other parts of their body. So that was like an issue that I've heard from people since leaving the show. But some people, of course, stayed really skinny and healthy and went on to make money.
I can tell you that, I was never as fat as some of the Biggest Loser people. My heaviest weight was 270 pounds, and I'm 5'8". So I was definitely, a big dude, but not big like that. But what's interesting about all this is I would have killed to have an opportunity to get trained by people like you guys to help me. You know what I mean? Like, you get there, I don't know if they make money to be on the show, but just the fact that you're there and you're like in a dorm and you're with all that support, I think is a great thing.
Yeah, it was a good thing. A lot of people, like I said, had a positive experience and they learned how to work out, and some of them went on to be trainers. But, like I said, if there's like two camps, the camp that hates the show now and the other ones that kind of are grateful to the show. A lot of them, like I said, feel they actually gained more weight back when they left the show. So, but like I said, I think it was a good opportunity. I had fun training them. There were a lot of people I trained that did keep the weight off, but
did you
obviously
use
they would have to
pills with your
I
people?
didn't use caffeine pills. No, they just worked out a lot. And a lot of the stuff you see on TV was for TV, but that doesn't mean that didn't happen. But it wasn't like they were dragging boxing bags up and down hilltops or pushing cars as regular workouts. That was more for TV. But I think it was during a lot of those type of workouts that people are now complaining most that they were injured because they were so extreme. But the rest of the day was just power walking on a treadmill, jogging, boxing, doing like cardiovascular workouts just to keep burning calories for 8 hours approximately. most people, I think, worked out about 8 hours a day.
Wow,
which is a lot.
that's intense.
Yes,
I complain about working out for 45 minutes or an hour every day.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah,
imagine that.
so-
Now, amigos, I just want to remind everybody, we're on with Cara Castronuova. She's a former Golden Gloves boxer, and you've seen her on ESPN as well as on The Biggest Loser as a trainer, professional athlete, turned activist. Cara, you've been on the show before, and I know you've shared the story with us, but for people that are tuning in now, because since the last time you've joined us, we've picked up another 50 radio stations that carry the show. So tell everybody how you made this transition from being a professional athlete to being a White House correspondent.
Really simple story. In 2020, I was still kind of in the athletic world and a trainer and doing that type of thing. But all the gyms closed down during the lockdowns, and I really couldn't work anymore. So that kind of got me into activism. I mean, I always studied journalism, and I was a boxing commentator and worked in broadcasting for some years and also the news. But really what got me passionate about this stuff and elections, politics, and doing shows, on different stations was the stuff that happened during the lockdowns in 2020, and being a Trump supporter, since 2016, got me really involved in politics, and somehow I just segued into working now with the White House in the press school, which is pretty cool. Getting to see the president every day and the press secretary and ask questions. It's kind of like an elite type of thing that only will happen once in my lifetime. So I moved to Washington, D.C. from New York, and I've been here 6 months, and I'm at the White House a lot, almost every day.
Yeah, well, I follow you on social media, as should everybody that's listening, at Cara Castronuova. And she's there every day asking the questions that need to be asked, as well as, giving us the scoop. And with respect to that, I know that you've been calling it like it is with many things. I mean, I saw you do it in New York City when you were in the Bronx, and basically blew the lid open on the story that there were Trump supporters in the Bronx, right? Prior to President Trump doing that big rally at the end of his campaign there, you had done so many interviews on the street with people where they were like, yeah, I like Trump. And it was really eye-opening because, the media had told all of us that, no, there's no way Hispanics and black people are going to like Trump. But yet you had trouble finding people that didn't like Trump.
I did, and it was shocking at the time. This is going back now, obviously before the election. I think it was in December before. It was maybe January, the winter before the 2024 election, and I went into the Bronx and just started talking to people about the economy, and then everybody was Trump supporters, and it was the most surreal thing because the talking points that they were giving me, trying to convince me because they thought I was probably a liberal reporter, were a lot of talking points. It was like they were just being Trump-pilled from 2016. They were telling me how there were underground tunnels and that Trump was going to save the kids from almost like QAnon stuff at the time. And it was 2020, so it was a lot of people were over that after 2016. For the most part, all of those things about Trump saving kids from tunnels and all this stuff. And they were telling me this, he's going to save us from pedophilia, a lot of these talking points that MAGA had been saying for
that
years.
Are very
so
popular.
I thought it was really, really endearing.
Yeah, I hear you. Cara, stand by. We're going to take a pause right here. We're going to come back, and I want to get your thoughts on what D.C. residents think of President Trump's crackdown on crime. So stick with us. Folks, we're coming right back with Golden Gloves boxer, Biggest Loser coach, and White House correspondent Cara Castronuova, and me, Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Donald Trump wants to evict the homeless from Washington, D.C. The US president published photos of homeless camps in the Capitol on his Truth Social account, warning they'll need to move out ahead of a major announcement on crime tomorrow. He said on Truth this morning the homeless have to move out immediately. We'll give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border, he said. We went from millions pouring in to zero in the last few months. This will be easier. Be prepared. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our capital back, is what the president said this morning.
So that is a report from Sky News Australia about President Trump cleaning up the streets, trying to get homeless people into the homeless shelters so that the city can be free from people just occupying it. And residents, local residents, have reacted to cleaning up the streets. Even the head of one of the safety patrol groups in D.C. Listen to this.
I've been saying that a long time ago. The federal government should take over the D.C. Police Department.
Leroy Thorpe is a native Washingtonian who founded the volunteer group Citizen Organized Patrol Efforts, also known as the Red Hats. They walk the streets of Chinatown doing violence prevention work.
With the mayor being in power so long, I think she's kind of used to how things are going, and I think Donald Trump really wants to clean it up, and I'm all for it.
So there you have a couple of residents, and I've heard, this month, I've heard so many different clips of residents saying that they're happy with what's going on. In fact, the only people I've heard, and just to be clear, since we're on the radio, all of these clips that I've seen of residents happen to be African Americans that live in D.C. The people that are challenging it are typically white people that are, taking to the streets and organizing protests saying that, what Trump is doing is wrong, it's authoritarian, he's being a dictator. And they're not in the neighborhoods that are being affected by the crime, which I think is just, ridiculous. But that seems to be what my assessment is. I want to hear from Cara Castronuova, White House correspondent for Lindell TV, as in Mike Lindell, Mr. My Pillow himself. And Cara, tell me about what the reaction you're getting from people about President Trump's cleanup efforts in D.C. and cracking down on crime.
Well, it's exactly like Stephen Miller said today when he was with J.D. Vance, and there was a group of protesters outside. They're generally elderly white people, is the way he put it, that are old hippies, which they're not really even hippies. They're sort of the generation after hippies, because hippies would have been old now. But it's generally really privileged sort of people that live in Georgetown or other wealthy areas in D.C. that are not affected by crime. Like Georgetown has homes that are $10, $20 million. It's a really, safe community. So is Morgan's Adam, or different areas like Foggy Bottom. And it's the areas in DC, like the area I went to go interview some residents, which people have a lot of crime. They're the minority communities, sort of similar to the Bronx, you could say, where people actually are affected most by the crime. So obviously they are saying that there's crime on the streets. It's just kind of a common sense given. Of course there's crime in DC. Of course it's bad. Of course it's dangerous. They all said that. But it's the white liberals that live in the really nice areas that are out there shouting, free DC, no federal takeover by President Trump. He's a fascist and whatever it is that they want to say, the whole time taking away protection from people that need it the most. So it's just so hypocritical, so selfish, and, people are aware of it down here. You just don't hear from them.
Yeah, I find it so ironic that, again, the people that are affected by the crime are like, yeah, it's about time. Because I don't care what color people are. I say this every day, and I'm going to keep saying it. I've never met somebody that said, I want to live in a bad neighborhood. I want to live in a neighborhood that's crime-ridden. Nobody wants to do that, irrespective of race. Have you met people like that?
No, nobody wants to live. And that's the funny part. The majority of these protesters that you see out there would never step foot in any of these neighborhoods. They just wouldn't. They wouldn't even step foot there. So they're protesting Trump's wanting to put more police in these areas, but they themselves would never go to the areas because they know it's dangerous. So it's just a hypocrisy. So I did get to talk to some people who, a lot of them Trump supporters, are saying they're glad with what he was doing. They believe D.C. should be federalized forever, they said, not just, for 30 days. That I guess Congress is really the one that's supposed to be in charge of D.C. according to the Constitution, and people think that's a good idea, that local control by this Democrat mayor has just basically failed the people here in D.C. And, sadly they keep voting Democrat, but they are not happy with the current job that the mayor is doing here in D.C.
Now, Cara, I want to get your thoughts on something, because I know that you've become just really, really good friends with Jasmine Crockett since you've been in D.C. And she's very, very upset about the Texas gerrymandering getting approved today. What are you hearing on the streets of the Capitol about this?
About Jasmine?
No, well,
Or
about
about the
Democrats in general and their reaction to what happened with Texas getting
Yeah,
approved
well, obviously
today.
they're not happy. They're having meltdowns about, I think, right, Gavin Newsom threatening in California to try to make up for it there, which is sounds so, I don't know, it doesn't sound legit. But, obviously people are upset because that's going to add seats to the House for the Republicans. And I'm sure they have a game plan to come up with gerrymandering 50 more seats to replace that. But, I'm generally at the White House. Congress, I think, is coming into session soon, so I'll be over there again, and I'll try to find out. I'll hunt down Jasmine Crockett. Try to get an interview with her. She's out and about a lot. I've seen her out, and try to, ask her
I hope
thoughts.
she
I'm
gives
sure
you
she'll
the
have.
interview because I feel like
I
she's a
think
lot
she will.
friendlier than AOC. AOC's not very friendly.
She isn't. She's not really approachable. I think Jasmine would kind of think it's friendly media and just kind of play it like that, and then go in with the hard questions.
Yeah,
That would be a
exactly.
great interview. I'm gonna purposefully seek her out.
All right, well, you do it. I'll
So
play it.
far. Okay,
Because
sounds good.
I want to hear that. I have such a good time with the Jasmine Crockett audio every single day. Now, let's talk about some of the other things. You're part of this new cadre of influencers and correspondents and reporters that previously didn't have access to the White House press briefing room. That this was once locked down by the fake news media, the legacy media, those who controlled the narrative for the country. They were the gatekeepers of what we heard and saw, and that's no longer the case with people that have programs that have a lot of reach, YouTube channels, radio shows, all sorts of different type of media. What's it like being in this new White House press briefing room?
It's cool, and I know that this is the first time they've done this, not even in the first Trump administration. It was always the legacy media there at the White House. It was just the traditional way. It's a smaller briefing room than people think. That briefing room people often see is really only about 40 seats in the room. Everybody else is standing room, and it's very, very tight. Only two people could fit in the aisle, and there's one aisle, and there's the area by the door. So it's very restricted. And like I said in the past, only AP, Reuters, Bloomberg, Fox, CNN, and all the major people were here with some newspapers. And now the Trump administration has opened it up to what they're calling new media or alternate media, like the Gateway Pundit, for example, or Lindell TV, which is where I work, which is owned by Mike Lindell. So people should follow LindellTV.com. And we have so many great hosts on there, like Rudy Giuliani, who he has a show at night. Silk from Diamond and Silk, and Emerald Robinson, and so many other great people. I'm on there every day, so definitely check it out. But we're in the media room, and others, like Charlie Kirk has a reporter there, like the Daily Wire. So it's really driving, I think, the mainstream media slightly crazy because now they have to share space with us, and we're everywhere. Like the new media is everywhere, and getting questions and taking away their time with some of their time with the president. Of course, he takes questions from everybody, but now they're sharing time with podcasters, influencers, and what they're calling alternate or new media, which means you're basically not owned by a gigantic corporation with special interests. A lot of the stations there are now owned by an individual, an actual one person, not like I said, a corporation. So it's really interesting. Just the reaction, sometimes especially at the beginning, because a lot of us do our reporting, a lot of in the White House from the briefing room when it's raining, say, and like I said, it's really small. So we have such different opinions, like so many different opinions now at the White House. It's not all the mainstream media opinion, where literally I'll watch people watching me as I'm doing a report, and it can be someone from a mainstream media outlet, and their mouth drops to the floor at something I say. And sometimes it's the opposite. My mouth will drop to the floor. I'm like, did we just watch the same thing? Like they'll say, oh, Trump was very nervous, and he seemed out of source. And I'm like, President Trump and so had a great meeting. Like and they're like looking at me like I'm crazy. So I'm like, who's the crazy one? I don't know. And then I had a friend who was actually reporting, and she was talking about COVID and how the vaccines, don't work or whatever she was talking about. And like literally there was like 6 or 7 people in there that were so offended, that were sitting in the media seats, just looking up like in disgust. So it's kind of interesting being in there. Like I said, I think they're getting used to us now. I think they're getting used to us. But at the very beginning, they were in shock, like complete shock.
I'll tell you that's so like an example of what's going on in America, right? I think people are ultimately getting used to the MAGA people, the red hat people, just being a part of society. Because prior to Trump winning, I think, MAGA people were ostracized from society. So keep doing what you're doing, Cara. You're on Lindell TV. Let everybody know where they could catch your reporting and how they can follow you online.
Sure. Go on Lindell, LINDEL TV.com. That's owned by Mike Lindell from My Pillow. So go on My Pillow and buy a pillow. They're really great. And I'm not just saying that because I work for Mike Lindell. And you can follow me on X right now at Cara Castronuova, and follow Lindell TV and go on LindellTV.com. And I'm literally at the White House every single day. I do a report right from the White House lawn at between 1 and 2 p.m. And you can check me out on the various shows there all day and just support a new media group that's, obviously trying to make it. And we're doing great reporting, different points of view, and always striving, obviously, not to be fake news.
Outstanding. Keep up the great work, Cara. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. I want to thank you for being here. God bless.
Thank you so much, Rich. Have a great night.
You bet. You too. And amigos, we continue with your thoughts, your calls on cleaning up D.C., on Jillian Michaels, the biggest loser, and what do you think about the new media in the White House press briefing room? Your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, we're going to go to the phones. Open Phone America. Of course, a time-honored tradition on this program started way back in 1978. The late, great Larry King. Open Phone America, taking calls all night on all topics, and continued for 3 decades by the legend himself, Jimbo. And I get to do it with you guys, and I consider it an honor and a pleasure. And the number is 833-482-5337, 833, the number 4, my last name, Valdez. Let's go to Brian, calling us from Germantown, Maryland, on WMAL. Go right ahead, sir.
Hi, I really like your show, and it's kind of different, and I particularly appreciated your interview with Burgess Owens, which I could relate to, where he said that Al Davis was smarter than those guys, and they were going to listen to Al Davis. Well, and Trump is smarter than them, so listen to Donald Trump. And I love Donald Trump, and I have a big concern now because in negotiating with Vladimir Putin, I think he's negotiating with a psychopath.
No, it's probably
that's
true.
Something you can't do. Well,
so
they tried to negotiate with Hitler before
hold
World War II.
Wait, hold on. What do you recommend? Go golfing?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying he's doing something wrong in trying, but I don't think he's going to win this one because I think the guy's a liar.
Well, let me ask you this. What is there to win? Did Trump start the war? Is he going to finish a war? Will a single American die as a result of the war?
I'm not blaming Trump. I'm worried about him.
I'm just saying, if nothing happens, America's still right where we started. He's only trying to help other people.
I don't want nothing to happen. I want to succeed and
well, that's my point. How do you, Brian? How do you succeed if you don't try? Right? I mean, that's really all this is. Vladimir Putin, I think you hit the nail on the head. Psychopath, yes, but he's not in a psychotic episode. He's a very calm, calculated type of guy that wants what he wants. And Trump has created conditions. He's not coming out of goodwill, right? He's not at the table and coming to Alaska because, oh, my gosh, they invited me to Alaska. He's coming there because Trump just cut a $750 billion deal It's almost $1 trillion. Why? Because they're going to buy oil from us. And that's a loss for him. That's just one deal. So what happens if they keep doing that, Brian? Well, he keeps losing money. So now this drastically affects his economy. So guess who's very interested in making a deal now? Vladimir Putin. So you couple that with now us going to Venezuela and potentially, putting them on notice. It puts the United States in a very energy dominant position. That's already a win, right? We're already winning because we're getting the purchase of our liquid natural gas and our oil from the United States to the Europeans and cutting out Putin. So I think that's win number one. Win number two, we're stopping the fentanyl stuff, and who knows what we can do in a deal with Maduro in Venezuela. So again, going back to your point, let's say Putin says, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to keep killing these people. Trump says, all right, take care, everybody. Have a nice day. Godspeed, everybody. And we keep selling oil. I mean, there's nothing but upside here.
Well, the downside is if they give up the Donbass, then...
well, that's a downside to Ukraine, not to the United States.
Yeah, well, but they're our friends. And I just don't want to see that happen. I talked to a guy who's a retired 3-star general.
Yeah.
And is in a position to know. And he said that their country is totally not defensible if you give up the Donbass. So...
And that's where this whole thing started, in the Donbass. Yeah. Well, listen. I mean, I understand and I appreciate your concern, and I share it with you. I'm also concerned. I mean, nobody wants to see this 40,000 people per month die, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that's a factor here. We don't want to see that. I think we also, as a country, don't want to continue to be the supplier of arms to a country that's not just keeping them in place for security assurances, but keeping them in place to actually have a hot war with another country. So I get that part too. I really do. I get all aspects of this. We are better off in the world if Ukraine and Russia are at peace. But for the last 3.5 years, we've not been in that position, and we're still okay. So I think, I give President Trump tons of credit and tons of kudos for doing what he's doing. It's something he doesn't even have to do, but he's doing it. And there's a benefit to us for sure. I don't think his actions are signaling that he is best friends with Putin, or if he's best friends with Zelensky, or he's rooting for one over the other. I think he's rooting for peace, and my hope is that we'll get there. Godspeed to you, my friend. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Gil, San Antonio, Texas, streaming the show. Are you back in Manila, or are you still here stateside, Gil? 1 minute.
I'm doing a lot better, Rich. Thank you very much.
You sound terrific.
I feel terrific. I'm going to have another surgery, a cataract surgery, in a couple of weeks. And back about 4 years ago, I had a cataract surgery in the other eye, and I had a cataract joke that was Jim's favorite.
Well, don't tell it yet. Hang on. I got to take a pause right here, but we're coming right back with you, Gil. Don't go anywhere. Amigos, if you're in part of the country that doesn't come back, then you're going to miss Gil's joke, but check it out on the podcast. Everybody else, keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back. Hasta la próxima. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
there. Good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of the program. We're live and national. Happy to be with you this Wednesday night, hump day, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. The phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, here it is, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to say that there's a behavior that we're seeing across the country in a lot of areas, and it's spreading to popular culture. And it is entertaining, but as entertaining as it is dangerous. And this has a lot more to do with it's beyond broken homes. This behavior is a lack of respect for humanity, and it's truly like a cancer on society at large. And I'm talking about this carelessness for others. You see it evident in certain police interactions, people speaking to the police a certain way, that they're just extremely belligerent, typically very young people. You see it with anything. I mean, in so many walks of life. Driving down the road, parking spots galore. But the Amazon guy wants to park his truck in the middle of the street so that no one can go by. Puts his flashers on, gets out, delivers his package. Could have totally just pulled over and been out of the way, but that would have taken him an extra 4 or 5 seconds, and he didn't want to waste those seconds because you don't matter. No respect for humanity. Same thing with, and honestly, I've seen FedEx guys do it as well. Second example, right before the show, somebody sends me a text. One of my friends, YouTube video. Headline, cop catches nurse stealing from patient. I see it. Young lady goes in. The patient is, like incapacitated in the room, but there's a camera in the room. And, of course, we're watching the video. She looks at his watch. She likes it. She takes it off. She goes to the wallet. There's some cash in it. She takes that, too. Puts it in her pocket of her uniform, her scrubs. And the next clip in this video that I see is police body cam footage. She's getting in her car. Cop says, "Hey, how you doing? You leave work with anything extra today?" She's like, "No, can I help you with something?" And he's like, "Yeah. You didn't leave work with some stuff that isn't yours?" And she's like, "No, I did not." And he says, "All right, do you mind if I search you?" And she was like, "Why would you want to search me?" He's like, "Because I've got you on video taking property that's not yours." And she's like, "Well, if you've got the video already, then why do you want to search me?" And he's like, "You're under arrest." And he, grabs it and takes a Rolex watch out of her pocket, the money, and he says, "Oh, look, this is exactly the same watch and the same exact money that was just stolen from a patient in the nursing home that you work at, where you were seen on video doing that." And she's like, "Well, if I was on video," she's like, and you have the property back, are we good?" And he says, "No, we're not good. You're under arrest. You could." And she's like, "Well, I want to see this video." And he says, "Oh, you could, you'll be able to see it in court." And the entitlement that this woman had, like as if you're allowed to get into this open debate with the police. Now, I'm not saying you're not allowed, but you're not, right? I mean, the police have a pretty simple job. They have authority, what they call police power, to arrest your ability to be free. So it makes sense to try and have a peaceful interaction with them so that they don't use this. Now, I understand that we're free people, and I am always in support of a free people. But at what point do we like play by the rules here? And we say, "All right, look, you've got me on this. You're locking me up. All right, lock me up. Let's, that's it. I lost here. You won this one. I'm going to take the L." But no, people want to go beyond. And it's a lack of respect, a lack of human dignity, a lack of caring for your fellow man. And I hate to be on my soapbox. I'm not trying to, sound like a softie here. But it truly is affecting younger and younger and younger children. And younger children are displaying the same lack of humanity and carelessness. And I've seen this span racial boundaries. I've seen it span socioeconomic realms. This has nothing to do with how broke you are or how rich you are. I've seen rich people that are just as entitled. You can't touch me. You don't know who I am. Just like I've seen people in government do it, just like I've seen people from the hood do it. I've seen everybody do it. And it just seems like there's a general sense, a general lack of humility and respect and value for human life for other people. And if we don't get to the solution, I would say this is the downfall of civility, right? We're not going to have a civil society. You're going to have more and more of these fighting videos on whatever social media you like. You'll see more of them because that's going to be the case every single time. Every time someone decides to not have common courtesy for someone, someone's going to get fed up and eventually they're going to fight. And we're going to have bedlam and mayhem everywhere. And I can only say this from my perspective. I've never seen this before in my life. I've never seen such a lack of respect and disregard for everything. And people could try to point fingers and say, it's because of this, it's because of that. To me, it really doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you want to know what it is so you can try and fix it. But you may not be able to fix it. What we have, it doesn't, sometimes the why doesn't matter. You know, I remember making an example once, and because people challenge me on this, but the reason I don't think the why matters is this. You're walking down the street, someone grabs you by your collar and begins to punch you in the face. Do you stop and ask them why? Or do you do everything in your power to get them to stop punching you? Punching them back, pushing them away, creating distance between the two of you, right? I feel that your sense of survival kicks in immediately and you do whatever you can to protect yourself and to eliminate the threat. So asking why and using reason is not a primal thing. It's something that happens when you don't feel threatened, right? When you go, all right, why are you acting like this? What's going on with you, right? You can have a conversation, but not when someone's punching you in the face. And we're getting to a point, I feel, in life where whether it's these airline brawls or wherever you go, fast food, there's always something going on. Traffic stops, police, you name it. And this to me is just generally problematic. And I feel like I'm bombarded with these videos and people. I saw one of these two women. They go into a bar, and this woman decides to go into the bar, and she's not allowed to go in. The manager of the bar says, "I'm sorry, you can't come in." And she's like, "Oh, we're going in." And the cops are there, and the cop says, "What do you want me to do?" And again, I'm watching the body cam video. The cop says, "What do you want me to do? You want me to trespass them?" He's like, "Yeah, trespass them. Do what you got to do. They can't come in." Very visibly drunk. He says, "Hey, look, miss, you can't come in." And she starts, you don't know what I'm talking, you don't, she says, "First of all, I want you to turn off your body cam." And he says, "Okay, whatever." And she's like, no, I know how this works. And the protocol is if I ask you to turn it off, you have to turn it off. He's like, "Well, I'm not turning it off." And her friend says, "You should listen to her because she's a lawyer and she knows what the F she's talking about." Cop says, "That sounds like lawyer BS to me. Get out of here." They get into this thing back and forth. He just keeps trying to get her to leave. She doesn't want to leave. He says, "All right, now you're under arrest because you wouldn't leave." He locks her up. She's freaking out. Whole show. Her Gucci bag is flying. I mean, it's very humorous. I was laughing, you know. But again, sad. When you stop laughing at the immediate humor of it, you say, "Oh my gosh, these are real people." And she's screaming, "I am an attorney general." So whatever state they were in, she was one of the deputy AGs, assistant AG in her state. And I'm thinking, if she gets to keep her job, it's like a miracle from God, because you don't get to typically embarrass an administration and get to keep your job. But again, it's this air of you don't know me, you owe me, this is my world, you're just living in it, that really... and listen, this is coming from a guy with a big ego that listens to himself talk every night for 3 hours. I think this is beyond the pale. So I want to know what you guys think about this. But before I get into that, before we get into the rest of our conversation, some of the news today was that Texas won what they had to win, right? They got their gerrymandering, bill approved in Congress, the one that they had pushed through the State House. And Democrats, of course, are very upset about this. And I was looking at that headline and was going to play you a clip of that, but because we're tight on time in this segment, I'm going to forego the cut. But the Texas part made me remember that Gil from San Antonio, Texas, who's really from Manila, Philippines, but he's been in Texas at the VA hospital, called in, and he was telling us a story, one that Jimbo loved. So I don't normally do calls in this first segment, but because it's Gil and because he sounded so good and he's doing well in his health, I wanted to bring him back on. Gil, go right ahead.
This is my cataract joke. It's about a man about my age having vision problems. He goes to the ophthalmologist. He's examined. The ophthalmologist says, I have bad news and I have good news. The bad news is you have a cataract that we have to intervene or you'll go blind. The good news is we have a procedure. It's called an intraocular lens. And at the end of the procedure, you'll have the eyes of a teenager. And the man said, really? The eyes of a teenager? Yes, sir. And the man said, oh, the wonders of modern medicine. But I have one question, doctor. Does my wife's gynecologist have anything like that?
Look, I laughed at that one. That was a good one. It didn't go over my head. Excellent job, Gil. Gil, I don't care what you decide to do with your career. I think you need to do some stand-up now that you're patched up and ready to go. Gil from Manila, Philippines, streaming from Georgia, by the way, WGKA out of Atlanta, and he's in San Antonio. Gil, love it. Thank you, brother, for the call. And amigos, I want to continue with our conversations. Of course, we're going to get to the rest of your calls. We've got calls from Missouri and from Idaho and more. And a call from New York because our next guest is from New York. And you may know her from the radio, Xen Sams. She's a media personality. She hosts a great show called A Moment of Zen. And I want to talk about a few things, some of her activist work and some of what she does to help people, in particular in the area of Alzheimer's. But also, I want to get her reaction to this stuff with Chris Pratt. As you know, Chris Pratt's been making headlines because he said something positive about President Trump. And the media was like, oh, hold on a second. Why would you say something like that, right? So we're going to get to that and so much more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. Somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company straight till, 2.5 hours from now or so, an hour and a half from now. And I want to continue our conversation with somebody I'm very fond of. Xen Sams. She's a media personality, the host of A Moment of Zen. You can hear it on iHeartRadio and 710 WOR in New York City. And Xen Sams, I want you to listen to this clip of Chris Pratt, the actor, really just going off saying, look, you may not like Trump, but the stuff that him and RFK Jr. are doing when it comes to health are actually pretty good things. Listen to this.
Meantime, actor Chris Pratt is praising RFK Jr. and President Trump for their Maha mission.
There's certain things that he oversees that seem to be supported in a bipartisan way, like getting terrible toxic stuff out of our kids' food. I think that's a great thing. And so, if you do that, that's amazing. I'd hate to be so mired in hatred for the president that any success from his administration is something I'd have an allergic reaction to.
Pratt also saying he has spent time with RFK Jr. in family settings being related to the secretary through marriage.
Fun fact.
And something I know that Xen Sams has always advocated for is mental health, physical health. So I think we've got her back. Xen Sams, welcome.
Hi. Hey, Rich. How are you?
Good. It's tough to hear you. I don't know if we can get through it at this volume, but if you can talk loud, tell us, your thoughts on this Chris Pratt commentary. He said that we shouldn't hate Trump. We shouldn't hate what RFK Jr. are doing. Of course, that is a relative of his through marriage. Your thoughts?
This is significant. I mean, you can hear me. Can you hear me?
It's not going to work out for long. It's very low.
sounds so weird. Okay, I don't know why it would be the case. It's directly on the cell phone here, but okay. Okay, I'll try to do that a bit louder. You're on speaker.
We got a minute left, Zen.
Sorry, yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you as well. Feedback is low, but okay, yes, Chris Pratt. So I think it's significant, Rich. It's very significant because the way I see it is Chris Pratt represents something rare in Hollywood. He's unapologetic about his views, even if they don't fit the progressive mold. And I think whether you agree with RFK or not, it shows that celebrities are no longer afraid to break away from that Hollywood narrative. You know that narrative. And is it messy? Is it messy? Sure. But I'd argue it's healthy. I mean, for too long, I think actors have been expected to follow just that one script politically. And I think Pratt changes that. And that's why people are paying attention. And at the end of the day, free speech has to apply to everyone, not just the left in Hollywood, but to the conservatives too.
A great point. And Zen, I know that you lived this, right? You were a model and worked in Hollywood and in entertainment world, before getting into this level of media that you're involved in now. And I know that you've seen this firsthand, where there's certain things that are taboo, certain things you can say, certain things you can't. And I would have imagined that we're kind of gone from that place. But the fact that people are all up in arms about Chris Pratt leads me to believe that we're not that far away from it as I thought.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. And the whole idea is, I think it's, if you compare Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself is taking the opposite stance, right? Joking that if Trump is reelected, he might have to use the force to flee the U.S. I mean, it's classic Hamill. It's tongue in cheek, but it shows just how polarized the industry is.
Yeah. Zen, hang on. The music means I got to take a quick pause. We're going to come right back with Xen Sams. She's the host of A Moment of Zen on iHeartRadio in New York City. And when we come back, we're going to learn about her work in health alongside that of what we just talked about with Alzheimer's. And she's got a big fundraiser coming up. Don't go anywhere, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back with Xen Sams.
Of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
Chris Pratt is talking politics and defending the controversial Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The Marvel and Jurassic World star was asked about RFK Jr. while appearing on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast and spoke warmly about the controversial political figure. Pratt's wife, Katherine Schwarzenegger, is RFK Jr.'s cousin. There are certain things that RFK Jr. oversees that seem to be supported in a bipartisan way, like getting terrible toxic stuff out of our kids' food. I think that's a great thing. If you just do that, that's amazing. I'd hate to be so mired in hatred for the president that any success from his administration is something I'd be having an allergic reaction to. To be like, oh, well, if they do it, I don't want it to happen. I'll put Clorox in my children's cereal myself. Be reasonable here. There's certain things that would be a good thing to have. I want them all to be successful. He continued.
That, again, reiterating the point that we had a little earlier with Chris Pratt. And we had some conversation with that. About that with Xen Sams. And Xen Sams is back with us. Xen, one of the things that RFK Jr., our health secretary, has said is that these toxic ingredients in food lead to a lot of health problems. Certain vaccines have been linked to causing other types of health problems. And one of the health problems that's out there that I think there isn't a person that any of us know that doesn't know somebody who's been affected by it is Alzheimer's disease. Dementia really touches a lot of people, and we don't know the root cause of it, but but people are trying to figure it out. And I know that you're involved in putting together a fundraiser to help to that end. Xen Sams, tell us more about it.
Yes, tomorrow morning, I'll be part of the We Play It Forward Foundation fundraiser, which is a cause dedicated this year to fighting Alzheimer's and really supporting the families Alzheimer's devastates. And the proceeds are going directly to 5 incredible beneficiaries, which are the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, the Alzheimer's Association, the Long Island chapter, Gerwin Healthcare System, and Mid-Island, the YJCC, and the Suffolk YJCC. And Rich, each of these organizations is on the front lines, and they're providing care, they're advancing research, and really supporting families. And the numbers are staggering right now, and my grandmother is part of this number. We have about 6.9 million Americans over 65 living with Alzheimer's. So by 2050, that number is projected to nearly double. So that means every 65 seconds, someone new develops the disease. I mean, this isn't a distant issue. It's really touching families everywhere. And so the We Play It Forward event tomorrow is about more than just dollars. It's truly about awareness. It's about compassion. And it's truly, I believe, building a community around one of the hardest battles anyone can face. I'm watching my mother live through this with my grandmother right now. So whether it's through golf, fundraising, or just showing up, I mean, people are rallying because they know how much this matters. So I encourage everyone listening to check out WePlayItForwardFoundation.org. Every bit of support counts, whether it's a donation, sharing the cause, or simply learning more, because at the end of the day, the measure of our society is how we care for our most vulnerable. And our elders are extremely, extremely vulnerable, in my opinion, because they are the foundation of our families.
You know, Xen, you're 100% right. And this is, again, it's just scary. Some of the facts, the stats and the facts and figures that you see about this stuff are so concerning. I was looking at one. It shows nearly 7.5, but about 7.2 million Americans age 65 or older suffer with that. And that's up from 6.7 million just a couple of years ago. This is, it doesn't seem like it's trending in the right direction. They expect this to keep going up to 13 million in the next 25 years. So they don't even see a hope in sight. And this, I think, is scary, Xen.
It's very scary, and it's under-researched, it's underfunded, and it falls on the caregivers. The most important thing I will say is that if we are in this fight together, it's not just about, taking care of your aging population and placing them in homes. It's about reversing Alzheimer's, because it can be, and there's some breakthroughs out there. There's some incredible research, but it really, truly begins with funding and the research for this. And I know that when it comes to children's foundations and children's causes and children's research, people feel more compelled to donate. But let me tell you, this directly affects the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. When the granddaughter walks into the room and she's staring at a grandparent who no longer recognizes her, that's a moment that you never forget, not only as a child looking back up at your grandparent who's just completely a blank stare, but to the parent witnessing it, right? So, and the caregivers who are around this, no one talks about the caregivers and the financial burden and the mental and emotional toll. Just when my mother is, in her 60s, trying to live her best life, and she should be looking at retirement, looking at what her next 10 years are going to look like, or 15, she's now worried about my grandmother and wanting to make sure she's always there for her, freezing all her meals and cooking them for her. Again, generation of I refuse to place her because she only has 5 to 10 good years left. And they make a great point. You don't want to take them out of their environment. You want to keep it familiar, but you at some point you have to start to think of yourself as the caregiver, and that's the hard part.
Caregiver burnout is very real.
It's very real. It's very real. Yeah. So, and I'm glad that you're allowing me to talk about this today, because yes, there's a lot going on right now. I mean, you have, whether it's Jillian Michaels pulling back the curtain on reality TV or Chris Pratt shaking up Hollywood politics, the We Play It Forward Foundation fighting Alzheimer's is on the front lines. This is, near and dear to my heart. So all of these three different topics remind us that truth, courage, and really compassion are what really drive change. And all of these stories reflect that, right? Even Chris Pratt, he's taking such a stance. I mean, good for him. I never thought I'd see that day in Hollywood come, but I mean,
it's every day you see more and more of surprises coming out of Hollywood. Xen Sams, when you're not, raising money for good causes like Alzheimer's and being a model and a radio host, what are you doing? What's the latest in your media empire?
Well, it's expanding the digital footprint of the media empire. Of course, we're now focused on additional markets, and in just a few weeks, coming September 15th, we'll be heard in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Chicago, Atlanta, adding Louisiana to the mix, and Houston eventually down the road. But, it's my world is my career and my family, and I love the balance of both. And when I'm not working, I'm with my family, and not with my family, I'm working, because for me, it's not work. I love what I do, and I get to work with great people, great organizations. I get to learn something new every single week times 5 with all the incredible experts that contribute on our show, and work with an industry that is evolving. And Rich, you're on the front lines. You see the evolution of radio and how far we have come. We're no longer just radio. You're digital streaming. You're live. People from all over the world could type in now. It's no longer just about driving in your car. And your voice trickles on. I mean, the voice of Hispanic conservatives, and I get to talk to you. This is the most rewarding job in the world, if you ask me. So when you ask me what I'm not doing when I'm not doing this, it's thinking about what I'm going to be doing when I get back to work. But I do love to cook.
That's good. Well, you're very kind. You said nice things, and I appreciate that. And you're right. I find myself getting calls from different places, outside of the country, who are tuning into the live show because they're able to stream it. Because you're right, people are getting radio from a lot more places than just the terrestrial dial. And it's never been more evident than now. A lot of people enjoy the show live, and when they can't finish the whole show, they go and they catch the podcast. I'm sure you have a lot of listeners doing the same thing. And for people that want to listen to your show and check out what you do, you have an amazing variety show that comes on every week. Tell people how they can access the show and what they can expect.
Well, you can definitely go to amomentofzen.com, and that's Zen with an X, not a Z, amomentofzen.com. You could find me all over social media. My favorite platform for interacting with each and every one of the listeners and viewers is on Instagram. And my handle there is my first and last name, Xen Sams, XENSAMS. And we're live every Saturday night on 710 WOR and 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern, but we get repurposed throughout worldwide digital streaming the very next day, and OTT and OTA platforms. So once you head to amomentofzen.com, you can subscribe and pick your media consumption. I will deliver.
Outstanding. Well, Xen, I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts, and moreover, I want to thank you for doing what you're doing for these Alzheimer's charities, dementia at large, and Alzheimer's specifically are, again, wreaking havoc in families all over the place, irrespective of race or politics or finance. Nobody's safe from Alzheimer's. Nope. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. God bless you, and my best to Alexa and Brad.
Oh, thank you so much, Rich. You're the best. Thank you so much. Congratulations on all your success. I don't encounter a single person who has not listened to you and raves about you. You are incredible and such a trailblazer in your field.
Ah, you're too kind. Thank you, and God bless you. And amigos, we continue with your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and so much more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio And suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back to the phones we go, 833-4-VALDEZ. And let's go to Joplin, Missouri, KZRG. Michael, go right ahead, sir. Oh, Michael hung up on us. I got played. Anyway, we continue. We go from Joplin, Missouri to Boise, Idaho, streaming the show on richvaldez.com. Let's go to Paul. Paul, go right ahead, sir.
Yes. Good evening, Rich. You had a few callers back before the lady spoke about Alzheimer's, and he had a lot of fear in his voice about Trump, about maybe Trump getting hurt. And I was thinking about him, and I was thinking,
yeah, you're the gentleman who called from WMAL. Yeah, he seemed a little concerned that Putin wasn't going to be on the up and up, which is a valid concern.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the normal for him.
Right.
That's the madman at Moscow. And
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And anyway, I really don't think he has anything to worry about. I too had been a little bit fearful about the same thing, and he survived two attempts on his life already, and I think they got rid of everybody out of the Secret Service that they needed to get rid of, so that somebody like that slime ball couldn't slime in again. And this thing is kind of getting out of hand, and I understand what you're talking about. Stealing the watch and the money out of the person's pocket and off their wrist.
Yeah, in the hospital. You're talking about a guy who's knocked out on a breathing machine, whatever it was. Yeah, I just thought it was so bad, just bad, and you see things like that, and it just makes you think we're really losing touch with society, Paul. I don't know, but doesn't look good. Paul, thanks for your call, brother. I appreciate it. All right, we're taking a risk. We're going to go to Joplin, Missouri again. KZRG. Michael, go right ahead.
Hey, I'm here, Rich.
All right, you made it, brother. I was about to call up my friends in the deep state and say, stop messing with me. Go ahead, bro.
Me off. But anyway, I just want to talk to you a little bit about our society, about where it's going. And I guess the only thing I can say is if we don't get back to having integrity and reasonableness with each other. I know someone said that a house divided against itself cannot stand, and they, instead of going to the Bible, they thought that was something that was originated with Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, Lincoln was quoting the Bible.
Yes, he was quoting the Bible, and if we don't have an integrity. And, I teach my kids, my grandkids, I've been trying to teach them to shake hands and look me in the eye and, go on from there. That's just part of it, just being a man and bringing up young, especially my boys, my grandsons. I try to do that with them and just try to raise them. I'm not raising them, but.
No, but I get your point. And, Michael, what's so interesting and important here is that if you as a grandpa or as a dad, if you don't take the time to raise your sons and teach them how to be men, what do you think the alternative is? The other side of that coin. Some college, some YouTube channel, some TikTok influencer is going to teach them how to be something other than a man. And we have seen that time and time and time again. And that was just like the beginning of the degradation of society. I think we've stemmed the tide on that type of craziness, but we still have this overall lack of virtue. And, Madison talked about the importance of virtue in our people, that our government was, in effect, useless if it wasn't for the virtuous. And I get that. I get that in a different way now as I'm an adult and a little bit more experience with my own adult children, that if we are not a virtuous people, what are we doing? right? You cannot have a civil society. Civility will literally cease to exist, and we'll become savages. And I don't think that's the direction we're supposed to go in. Maybe I'm off my rocker here. Maybe I'm just having a bad day. But I don't know. You tell me. Michael, thanks for the call, brother. KZRG in the building. Shout out to Joplin. And 833-482-5337 is the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And again, if you want to support my friend Xen Sams and her foundation to help those with Alzheimer's, the website to learn more about that is WePlayItForwardFoundation.org. WePlayItForwardFoundation.org. And why am I talking about Alzheimer's? I think that's self-explanatory. This is something that affects a lot of people. Lots of people are affected. And that was a Kamala Harris right there, right? The school bus is yellow because yellow is the color on the school bus. Anyway, I got a little bit repetitive there. But the point I'm making is this stuff, it knows no bounds. And we need to drill down. Maybe this is something that we can learn more about from our good man, RFK Jr., and what we can, ascertain from the changes that are going on. Will that make an impact? Will changing our diet make a difference? Will, years ago they said if you cooked with aluminum, if you drank out of aluminum, if you, aluminum was the bad thing. Aluminum in your deodorant. I don't know the answer. I do know there's still aluminum in all those places, and that stuff hasn't been outlawed. People are still using aluminum foil. I don't have the answers, but I do know that this stuff messes up people's lives left and right, especially the patient. 10% of U.S. adults 65 and older, 10% have dementia. Another 22% have mild cognitive impairment. So thanks for listening to me on that one. And amigos, we continue the conversation. I want to get into another topic I don't always talk about. True crime. I got some true crime stuff coming up in the next hour. And for those of you who are with me, great. If you're not with me on the radio, stream the show, richvaldez.com. Hit the listen live button. We're going to keep going. Hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another hour of the program. 7 minutes past the top of the hour this Wednesday night, and we're live and national. If you want to join us on the phone, here's the phone number to our program, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ, and we've had some discussion tonight on a number of things, on how happy residents of D.C. are with President Trump federalizing D.C. to clean up some of the crime. We've had some additional discussion on Alzheimer's disease and how that affects people, as well as the reaction that people are having to Hollywood stars saying, hey, look, we really shouldn't hate President Trump, and what him and Secretary Kennedy are doing are actually pretty good things. And it makes you think, why are we in a place where people are expected to do and think only a certain way? right? And we've been talking about this for a couple of days, right? We've talked about it with the D.C. stuff. People are like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe the D.C. residents are saying that they want the police there. Why? Because they're black? And black people are supposed to, like crime? I mean, these are some of the most racist questions. The assumption that is built into the question when people say, I can't believe that you support that. How could you not support the police? The idea of getting rid of the police only creates one of two things, either chaos or the most polite and safe society because everybody's armed. Because those are the only two, I think, scenarios you have. Right? My family has a farm out in Pennsylvania. There's one sheriff, and I think he's it. It's the state police and the one sheriff in that county there, small county. So what happens if something goes down? You happen, right? You grab your gun and you handle it. That's how it works. So very safe, right? You don't have crime in those parts. Everybody's strapped. Everybody's packing. So I believe that an armed society is a polite society. However, if you're not armed, if they tell you you can't have guns because, they're bad, and then they tell you you can't have cops either, well, now you're sitting ducks. Because guess who always has a gun, whether there's cops or not? The bad guys, right? Bad guys love to have guns. They don't care if they have a license for the gun. They don't care if they're allowed to carry the gun. They don't care if they have a felony record. They don't care about anything because they don't care about the law and they don't care about your life. So you're going to tell me you got all these people that don't care and you sitting there caring about the law, caring about doing the right thing. That doesn't work. So when people say, oh, my gosh, you're Hispanic and you support the deportation of your own people, it's more like I'm Hispanic and I support law and order in America, like everybody else, like the Chinese, like the white people, like the black people, like the Indians, like everybody. Nobody wants to live in crime. Nobody wants to be in a situation that's untenable. That's the bottom line. You know, President Trump took so much heat when he gave his famous escalator speech, 2015, right? And he said, they're sending us their rapists, their murderers, right? Remember that? I remember that like yesterday. And that was over 10 years ago. When he made that speech, the Spanish channels, and there's only two big ones, Univision and Telemundo, they went to town saying that he said that all Hispanics, all immigrants are rapists and murderers, and they cut the clip saying they're rapists, they're murderers. And again, in context, he was saying they're not sending us their best, they're sending us their worst. They're rapists, they're murderers. THEIR, right? He's saying that's who they're sending us, the murderers that belong to these countries, the rapists that belong to these countries. But it wasn't translated that way, both in English media and Spanish media. And they went to town saying he's a racist and he's a xenophobe and he's this and he's that. And here we are with him getting the largest percentage of Hispanic votes that any Republican's ever gotten. And you've got Hispanics that are on board. You've got African Americans, in particular black men, that are on board, that in record numbers are growing for a Republican that ran for president, him winning the popular vote. Why? Because all of those blue-collar union Democrats that typically vote down the line for Democrats, they said, okay, so, I don't know, I'm a pipe fitter. I'm a steam fitter. I'm whatever. I'm a teamster. You think any of those people go home and they sit around the table and they're like, hey, honey, oh, man, let me tell you, what a great day we had at work. I was talking to Jack, and Jack was telling me about his son. His son's transition. Now he's Jackie. Yeah, he's going by Jacqueline now. We're so proud of him for coming out of the closet and, the bravery he's shown. Do you think that construction workers are talking like that? I can tell you that they're not. Do you think that if you go to my house, me and my brothers, a bunch of Hispanic guys, Americans of Puerto Rican descent, do you think that that's what we're saying when we're sitting around the dinner table? I don't know. Pick anyone. How about Chinese? Asians, Koreans, Japanese. Do you think they get around the dinner table and that's their conversation? This isn't a racial thing. This is a left-wing thing. I can't think of a racial group where the men are like, yeah, right on, man. This is the right thing to do. Now, you might find some outliers in any of those groups, but by and large, that this is not the norm. It's not the accepted norm. So I bring all of that up to say that we've gotten to this place where truth has become obsolete, and we're bringing it back, right? We're bringing truth back because sadly, it went on a hiatus. But truth is back. Trump has called out the fake news, corrected it in so many ways. They've forced them to correct themselves, right? New CEO at the parent company of CNN. MSNBC, new name. NBC doesn't even want their name on it. No more peacock logo for them. They're now going to be called MS Now. Now, for years, Mark Levin would call them MSLSD, said that they were high. Others have called them MSDNC because they were promoting the talking points of the Democrat National Committee. And they even went further beyond that, right? They really went into the Communist Manifesto. They left the Democrats behind and became just the real extreme radical left. You've got a slew of people that no longer work in media, some that have moved over. I think just 2 days ago, Chris Cuomo, who was, one of the big guys at CNN, he's now at News Nation, and he made this pronouncement the other day and said the Democrat Party is dead. Why did he say that? Because he realized they've gone so far away from their base of support, right? What is the base of the Democrat Party? A bunch of union people, black men, black women. Black women are still holding on, but black men largely have been like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't like taxes. I like no tax on tips. I like no tax on overtime. I like law and order. I like to raise my family in a safe place, and I like my son to stay my son and my daughter to stay my daughter. And that I've grown up with a lot of people, and I've yet to meet a black man that's like, hey, this is what we stand for. We stand for gender equality. I've just not have heard that. That's not a cultural norm in that community, nor is it in the Hispanic community, nor is it in the Union Democrat community. So where is this going? How do you maintain a Democrat Party if your major constituencies don't believe what you believe? You don't. So you create a radicalized fringe. Enter all the college-educated liberals, mainly women. And if we have to get race involved, mainly white women. And that's not enough. And that's why they don't have the White House. That's why they don't have the Senate. And it's why they don't have the House. So I want to continue our conversation. I want to keep talking about how we've beat back the fake news. But I also want to talk about some true crime because this Bryan Kohberger, this story just gets crazier and crazier. And everybody's talking about it. And I just, honestly, I got a little jelly. I felt a little left out. I was like, I'm not talking about it. I need to talk about this more because, it is the dog days of summer. And, with Congress out of session, it gives you time to talk about so many other things. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Plus, people are beating up El Trompito for moving homeless people out off of the streets. I thought that was the job of the government, was to say, hey, look, since the church may not be providing charity like they once did, we're going to provide you with some services and we're going to help you, whether they're mental health services or, transitional or temporary housing services. Somehow, when Trump decides to offer that and says, hey, it's not okay for you to live on the street, he's the bad guy. So we're going to talk about all of those things straight ahead with America's psychiatrist, forensic psychiatrist, Dr. Carole Lieberman. You see her on Court TV. She's been on our program a number of times. She's an absolute legend in true crime and in tying in political analysis with the crazy. And I hate to say crazy. I know it offends people, but she gets it. She understands mental health like few others. She has a MD. She's a doctor. She's got a master's in public health. She's a forensic psychiatrist. She's testifying in court as an expert witness all the time, countless occasions. And it's always a thrill to speak with her. So we're going to do that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
New details about the night Bryan Kohberger entered an off-campus house in Moscow, Idaho, and began a brutal rampage that left 4 college students dead. Newly released documents from Idaho State Police reveal a surviving roommate told officers she heard Kohberger call one of the victims by name, saying, "She heard a male say, 'It's okay, Kaylee, I'm here for you.'" Kaylee Gonzalez was fatally stabbed in bed on the 3rd floor along with Madison Mogan. Their friends Xander Kernodle and Ethan Chapin were both murdered downstairs. Kohberger accepted a plea deal that kept him from facing the death penalty. But after the verdict, Kaylee's parents told Today they're still haunted by unanswered questions in the case.
We asked them, can you just tell us the last moments of our daughter? They wouldn't even give us the facts of what happened.
Forensic experts hired by prosecutors to examine Kohberger's cell phone say he effectively wiped it of content for the month surrounding the murders.
I think the gap in the digital data is the loudest piece.
They say Kohberger also did not have...
The gap in the digital data is the loudest piece. This is the latest that I'm hearing on this case that seems to not go away. And honestly, I'm okay with it. There's so much to discuss, and I want to discuss it with America's psychiatrist, Dr. Carole Lieberman. You've known her for years as the terrorist therapist. She's an expert witness, and she's our guest right now. Dr. Carole, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
So let's talk about this. You've heard this report with this additional information. At least it wasn't known to me. It's from about a day and a half ago. What is your reaction to that, and how significant is this development about the digital data?
Well, that's, it is very striking, of course, but there was so much. I don't know if I would say it's the piece that that tells the story the most, but certainly it's significant. I mean, why would he wipe off that piece if it weren't that he was doing something that he doesn't want people to know about?
Yeah. Dr. Carole, I want to interrupt you just to let you know, it sounds like you're off mic. I don't know if the mouthpiece is far away from your mouth, but
I'll get closer.
Thank you.
I was saying that it certainly is very significant because it can't be a coincidence that it's that particular time. But there's so much really that speaks to this. And also, it's so interesting to hear, since the final hearing, since he got his sentence and so on, I've been hearing more and more things that point in the direction, which is what I thought from the very beginning, that he was after Kaylee, that she was his primary target. And what's fascinating to me, and it was from the very beginning, is that and it's a little frustrating that the families and people are still saying, what's the motive? When this crime happened on November 13th, 2022, and the families were getting frustrated that the police weren't finding the killer. And so I came out and I tried to help and said that the killer, of course I didn't know who the killer was yet, but I said the killer is an incel. They should be looking for an incel.
Remind the audience what incel is. We've had this conversation before, but I think it's important for anybody who may have missed it.
Yes. An incel, it comes from involuntarily celibate. And these are men who have been rejected by women throughout their life and who build up a rage towards the women because of these rejections. Women who don't want to go out with them who don't want to have sex with them, who don't want to marry them, anything. And there are these chat rooms on the internet that have proliferated, and they these men, these incels, talk to each other about, all these horrible women who have rejected them and what they'd like to do to these women, talking about all kinds of cruel, brutal ways of damage, hurting them, killing them, everything. So it's no wonder that something like this would happen. Now, I don't know for a fact that Bryan Kohberger was ever in these rooms, but he had his own experience that would have been enough. We may have talked about this where I mentioned about how, the reason why I was able to say early on, before they arrested him, that it was an incel, which of course it turns out that really he is because of how they talked about the two things that they said at the very beginning were, one, that it was the bloodiest crime scene that they had ever seen, and it was done with a knife. The killing was done with a knife. So what that means is that the killer had to have had a lot of rage. And the second thing that we found out was who the victims were. And these were beautiful women, beautiful students all together, really had their act together, the kind of women that Bryan Kohberger would have thought would never have gone out with him. And so, and there is evidence that he was stalking them. In fact, Kaylee told her father that she had a stalker. And I don't know if she told the school or he told the school, but the school didn't really do anything about it. So, it's and then the third thing, the kicker, is that after he was arrested, when some time went by and we were looking into his past life, they found that he had been, his first love was this blonde cheerleader in junior high school.
And I'm guessing that's what started the trend of him hating women and becoming an incel. Dr. Carole, stand by. The music means we got to take a pause, but we're going to come back and wrap up our conversation on Bryan Kohberger, the murderer. I'm going to call him a murderer. And, of course, more on what's going on with Washington, D.C. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez coming back with Dr. Carole Lieberman.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The best way to help the police chief in Washington, D.C. is for President Trump and Republicans in Congress to give them the $1 billion in money that belongs to them so that they can hire those police rather than bringing in these federal agents. I would also say, Martha, I would think that taxpayers all over the country, federal taxpayers, have to ask themselves how it is that we're using resources, national resources, the FBI, the DEA, folks who are supposed to be out and about protecting the country from violent criminals, and now they're spending their time taking down tents of homeless people in the District of Columbia. I would think people all over the country would worry about that diversion of resources.
So that's Senator Chris Van Hollen, and he's very upset about President Trump getting the homeless people the help that they need and getting them off of the streets. Apparently, Van Hollen and the Democrats want more homeless, and they want them to have no homes and to live on the streets. I think that's insanity, but that's why I'm bringing in the shrink, one of our favorites, the one that I like to call America's Psychiatrist, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Welcome back. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this removal of homeless encampments and getting them the help they need?
I think it's about time that someone did what needed to be done, what needs to be done. This problem came about because years ago, it was decided that the chronic mental health hospitals, the state mental health hospitals, should be, the patients should be sent away. They should be closed. And the idea was, and the idea on paper was fine, it was so that these patients could have the least restrictive environment. That was the buzzword, least restrictive environment. So the plan was they would close the hospitals, make the patients leave, and have them go to community clinics. Well, there was a couple of problems with that. First of all, they didn't build enough community clinics with enough personnel, mental health personnel. And second of all, it was really crazy. Talk about crazy. It was a crazy idea to expect the kind of patient who would be in a state mental hospital to be able to find their way frequently enough to get their medication, to get therapy, to be able to be stable. Because most of the people who were in these state mental hospitals had psychoses. They had either schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or some other psychosis and or addiction. And that's what the homeless have. So when they closed the hospitals, the homeless went out into the streets. They stopped taking their medicine at a certain point. You know, they're not really able, when they're in a psychotic state, to keep being responsible and knowing that they have to get themselves to a clinic and keep getting the medicine. And, you know, it was an unrealistic expectation. And so the idea, so any of the programs that they've been trying so far for the homeless, and they've been spending billions of dollars on these programs that were doomed to begin with, you know, like making homes, making either tiny homes or buildings, apartments, and that was supposed to be the solution. Put these homeless in apartments, in places where there's a roof. Well, you can't that's not the solution, because if they have mental illness or if they have addiction, they're not going to be cured by putting a roof over their head. And then they're still going to not be able to send. The criteria are danger to self, danger to others, or gravely disabled, which means being unable to put a roof over your head and get yourself food and get yourself clothing. Those are the criteria for involuntary hospitalization. And so you know, they end up being, you know, having these problems that would let them meet the criteria for involuntary hospitalization. And it's not, you know, this whole idea of least restrictive environment, let them be free. They like being homeless, sitting on the street. That's just not true. And when they are homeless, it's hard you need to get them into treatment. I think President Trump is doing an incredible job, an incredibly great job in general for all kinds of things, and especially tackling the homeless and tackling the crime. But, you know, I hope that he's doing it with the realization that these homeless people need to be triaged. In other words, just offering them a shelter or jail or treatment. Really, they should all be put in treatment, period. Because they can't really make that decision in their state when they pick them up in their tents. So that the kindest thing is to just not give them a choice and put them in treatment, period. Of course, then that begs the question that are there enough hospitals, or can the state mental hospitals be brought back or new ones built? Because that is the only way to solve this problem. When people were let out of these state hospitals, they either became homeless or they went into the jails.
Now, Dr. Carole, you know about this because you did your residency in a psychiatric hospital in New York City. Isn't that right?
Yes, I was a patient in the third floor. Yes, I did my residency at NYU Bellevue. And best place to learn psychiatry. And yes, the police would bring lots of homeless people to our emergency room. And when I was chief resident in my last year of residency, I was also loaned out to the Manhattan Psychiatric Center for some of the time, where I was like the assistant clinical director, and I supervised all the residents who were on the different wards, and I a lot of administrative kinds of things. So I know that they weren't cuckoo's nests. That's the problem. The people generally think that these state hospitals are like the movie Cuckoo's Nest. And sure, some were better than others. You know, there were some that had problems and so on. But for the most part, they were great. And the people got their medication. Hopefully they got some therapy. At least I tried to make that happen, you know, to get actual therapy, group therapy, individual therapy, in addition to medication. And it really helps them, and they're safe, and they get activities, and it's a lot better than being on the street.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, Dr. Carole, what if you had to give President Trump some advice, or if he and the rest of his team, I know his homelessness czar, who's been a guest on this program, is back in D.C. with the administration. If they're listening, what's your best advice to them?
Well, as I was starting to say, the best advice would be to bring, instead of just like rounding them up, to bring each homeless person. And yeah, I know it's a big job, and it wouldn't happen as quickly as, just rounding them up, but they really each need to be brought individually to some place, a hospital or some room, someplace where they can be triaged, where what they need can be decided. They need to see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist needs to read their history. If they can get, this is in a perfect world, to get their psych history from wherever they were in a psych hospital. But if not, then just examine them, be able to diagnose them, be able to start to treat them, and be able to and say where this person belongs. Again, not giving them the choice, but and I know, of course, a lot of people are, why you don't give them a choice? This isn't, this isn't a fascist state. Of course, they need to have the choice. When you go into a hospital involuntarily,
right? That's a Baker Act.
Right. In Florida, it's the Baker Act, and it's the 3 criteria that I said: danger to self, danger to others, or gravely disabled. That if you meet those one of those criteria, you can be put in the hospital against your will for 72 hours. And then at 72 hours, you can have be at a tribunal, be in a courtroom kind of setting. Usually they come to the hospital and with a judge or someone who acts like a judge. And then they decide, with the input of the psychiatrist, whether this person is okay to be let out or not. Like, assuming the person wants to be let out, that is decided. So it is fair. It is, it is humane. It's not like they're being put away forever. But it depends on how well. That's this is a problem not even just for the homeless, but for people in general. People who the regular person who has a family and all that. But let's say they become suicidal and their family brings them to hospital, and so they get admitted involuntarily because let's assume that they didn't want to go on their own. So they get admitted. They have this 72-hour hold, and even people who aren't on a hold, even the people who are voluntary, the problem is that we don't have enough hospital beds for psychiatric patients in this country. And especially, these days, with more and more people needing it, more and more people getting ill or having their mental illness exacerbated by various things that are going on. So even for people who are not homeless, there aren't enough beds. We need to start building more hospitals. We need to train more psychiatrists and
Sign me up.
Take care of these people.
Sign me up, either for the bed or to be a psychiatrist. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure it out. Dr. Carole, I want to thank you for joining us, and very good advice. Hopefully our friends in the White House are listening, and let everybody know how they can follow you and keep up to speed with the work you're doing.
Sure. Well, of course, on Twitter, it's at Dr. Carole MD, DrCarole MD. One of my websites is terroristtherapist.com, and also expertwitnessforensic-psychiatrist.com. So any of these ways.
Well, thank you, Dr. Carole. I appreciate you being here, and Godspeed to you. Folks, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm not a Republican, but I listen to you because you speak moderately and reasonably and softly and decently, and I really appreciate that.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
What a nice caller, right? Sometimes we play clips of callers. She obviously hasn't heard me yell at people and call them pendejos. But thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take the compliments as often as I can get them. And let's go to the phones here. Michael, Pendleton, Oregon, KUMA, West Coast in the building. Go for it.
Rich, great talking to you again. Great show. Really enjoyed Dr. Lieberman. Great guest.
Thank you.
Have the best guest there. I wanted to say President Trump's doing a great job trying to make Washington, D.C. safer, a safe place to live, and it's our capital city in the U.S., and cleaning it up. But a big part of it is the homeless people, and a doctor explained that so well, how that's happened. And there's a connection right here in my small city of Pendleton, 18,000 people. We had a state hospital here, Rich, in the 80s, and before then my brother worked there, and they had a psychiatric center. Well, those were closed, just like Doc said, and the people were put into the community. And I've heard the local police talk about this when they pick up people going through a crisis. They used to have that psychiatric center. They could bring them there. And now they end up too often in jail or maybe even the local general hospital here in Pendleton, which really isn't the best place for many of them. So that situation, boy, it hits home right where I am, Rich.
Yeah.
And
well, Michael, I'm going to share a little secret with you. Something maybe many of you know, I'm pretty sure you do. But there are a type of people in our country, I'm going to call them Democrats. And they do things to break things so they can fix things. And they don't care what people they ruin in the process. For example, Democrats like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Alejandro Mayorkas, they opened up the southern border, even though they said it was never open. But it was. It was literally like they had the National Guard down there opening fences, opening doors for people coming through the Rio Grande. This was not good for our country. In doing this, people died. People died coming over. People like Laken Riley died as a result of criminals coming into the country. This was never good. But they did this. They created a problem, not so they could fix that problem, but so they could fix the problem of we don't have slaves anymore. So who do we get to do the cheap labor? Welcome to the new slavery, right? New indentured servitude. People that will work for cheap and work under the table because they have no choice. They live in the shadows. Democrats created that. Number two, go back into the 1990s. The big move was to close mental hospitals. They did it everywhere. Wasn't just in Pendleton, Oregon, like you pointed out. Happened all over New York City. Created an amazing crisis. And there's always been a homeless issue in New York City. It's a big city. And this is something that Rudy Giuliani had to deal with. And I only know this because I worked with Rudy Giuliani at a radio station in New York City. And we talked about this once in the newsroom. And he was telling me, he said, you know, Rich, the idea that it's okay to be homeless was never okay with me. And I thought, what a novel idea. You know, all it took was electing a guy who said, it's not okay for people to live on the street. You can't sleep on the street. That's what he kept saying. And I thought, wow, look at that. But the Democrats didn't care. They'd rather those people sleep on the streets, unmedicated, unsupervised, and untreated, than be in a mental institution. And the same thing with people that are incarcerated. Some people can't be in society, and they don't want them in jail. They want them in your backyard. They want them in my backyard. And this type of people that I call Democrats, they make bad decisions on a regular basis. And I think the rest of us in America are keeping tabs, and we're realizing these are bad moves. Michael, thanks for the call. I appreciate everything you're talking about, and Godspeed to you and your girlfriend in Ukraine as well. KUMA in the building. Folks, I'm coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And we're going to do a speed round here. Lots of really good calls. Let's go to Toffee calling from Burlington, Vermont. WVMT, go right ahead quickly.
regarding what you were saying about the woman that stole the money and the watch from the elderly person, she probably had no discipline from her parents when she was younger. She has no respect for elders. She has no respect for authority figures. She thinks she can talk her way out of anything.
You're 100% right. And from that video, I should have played the audio. It really was a disgrace. Maybe I'll get it just so you could hear it. But you're right. All of the above, all true, but it's just too much. It's not just that woman. I'm seeing this behavior all over the place, and it's really disappointing. Tofi, thanks for the call, WVMT. Let's continue. Ruth in Chicago, Speed Round, WLS. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich.
Hi.
I was listening to your interview with Xen about Alzheimer's, and she was mentioned about reversing Alzheimer's, and coincidentally, I've been reading on that, and there's 3 books that are out by Dale E. Bredesen. He's MD, and he has a program that actually can reverse.
Well, I'm going to have to look into that. Ruth, the music means I got to go, but I want to address Frank in Cumberland, Maryland. AI will help us. There's already close to $1 trillion in investment. That's got to help offset the debt somewhat. Joe in Salem, good luck with the cataract surgery. Thank you. Tim in Springfield, you're right. The Democrats don't know what they're talking about. Civil War, bad idea. Amigos, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless you, America.